contracts for that matter. But it's more than just generic approval. It's they like him personally, but we ask a series of attributes. Honest and trustworthy, supports Israel, has the right vision for the Middle East, shares your values. All of these were in the upper 70s. Okay, there is a very strong support that's not just policy, but goes to what he stands for, what his beliefs are, what his values are, and him personally. And the highest scoring was that he's restoring America's standing in the world, which was very important. The other dynamic in place here is his opponents, his political opponents, have no standing, no credibility with American Jews. We threw out a couple of political opponents' names, whereas Obama's favorability was 74%, second only to Yitzhak Rabin was 76%, to put it in context a little bit. Rush Limbaugh's favorability was 22%, and Sarah Palin's was 23%. So there's no strong, credible alternative voice with the American Jewish population. The bottom line is, and I'm spending most of the time my talk on this dynamic because I believe this is the key dynamic on the issue right now as it relates to American Jews. The bottom line is that Jews voted 78% for Obama in 2008. In context, Al Gore, with an Orthodox Jew on the ballot, got 80% of American Jews in 2000. So 78%. The data shows that the support is stable, regardless of intervening events. It's rooted in shared values, and that while there are many dynamics to resolving the conflict, to the extent that Obama and Netanyahu have any public disagreements, it's very clear in the data that Jews will stand by Obama, which is in fact a repeat of what we saw about 10 years ago when there were public disagreements between President Clinton and Prime Minister Netanyahu. The second big takeaway I would say is it speaks to this stability on the fundamental attitudes towards America's role in the Middle East. The attitudes were not shaken by recent events. They're defined by strong support for the U.S. playing an aggressive and assertive and impartial role to help Arabs and Israelis reach a peace agreement, even if it means public disagreements, even if it means exerting pressure on both parties. There's two key questions that we ask in both surveys that I think get at the core of this. By a 19-point margin, Jews believe that the U.S. should use assertive diplomacy to end the conflict instead of allowing parties themselves to work it out. This again was a case where we pitted where we pit two messages against each other, and we would characterize this debate's playing out on the Hill right now, and some of the letters that are going around, whether or not the parties should work it out for themselves, or whether the U.S. should play assertive diplomacy. It's a 19-point advantage among American Jews towards diplomacy, and the U.S. being aggressively engaged, and that is virtually unchanged from what it was in July of 2008. The second, but I would say fundamental choice that we presented, the second fundamental choice we presented was, is it military superiority or is it peace agreements that best for Israel's security? And by 14-point margin, it was peace agreements over military superiority. I will stop there because I have a note that says no more time. We also
just like that taken away.
Yeah.
That was really neat.
I've been playing it a lot.
It was good. We're changing batteries.
But anyway, we can talk about we asked about settlements, we asked about the Gaza war, and Hamas Fatah unity government as well.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the panelists for keeping it short and sweet and to the point. And now we'll open up to questions from the floor. You, sir, had your hand up first. Can you please say who you are?
Yeah, my name is Mitchell Putnick. I'm the director of the U.S. Office of B'Tselem, Israeli Information Center for Human Rights in the Occupied Territories. My question is mostly for Mina, but can be for anyone. Over the weekend, there was a kind of a war of polls that played out in the media about Israeli attitudes towards the settlements. And it raised a lot of questions. It's been a sort of article of faith that we generally felt the people inside the Green Line were not particularly supportive of the settlements and the diversion of resources there and the problems that they caused, but maybe weren't sufficiently motivated to do enough about it. Has that changed in your opinion? Do you think now that more Israelis are supportive of the settlements and are opposing the sorts of changes that President Obama is trying to bring about?
I had a poll 10 days ago, and 52% of the Israelis supporting the freezing of the settlement. But if you take into consideration the natural growth, and you specify it in the question, it goes down to 42% who support freezing settlements. But having, I think, an interesting result, I had a representative sample of Lieberman supporters, of Israel-Palestinian supporters, and I asked them, had Netanyahu announced that he will freeze settlement, should Lieberman or Israel-Palestinian, should they stay in the government or they should resign? And majority, almost 2/3, think that Lieberman should stay in the government, even if Netanyahu will be clear that he's going to face violence.
Yes, sir.
Ian Daniel with Metropolitan State College of Denver. I was wondering if we've seen in the last election in the Knesset the rapid rise of Avigdor Lieberman's. I know I'm going to mispronounce it. The Israel-Palestinian. Yes.
Avigdor Lieberman is enough.
Do you see that as perhaps a retrogression in our?
So I didn't think.
Do you see the rapid rise of his party as sort of a retrogression in our efforts for a two-state solution, since he seems rather against it?
No, I think that Lieberman now he will accept the two-state solution with qualification, but Lieberman is accept. I think according to what he speaks, he will accept two-state with some reservations.
Yes, you had a question.
I'm Sam Davies, and I'm just a little intern in the congressional office. But my question is sort of relative to, it's certainly very promising to speak in terms of percentages and polls. But the last time, there was significant discussion revolving around percentages was when we came so painfully close to organizing an agreement in the late 1990s and early 2000s, even perhaps up to the last day of President Clinton's administration. Is your organization or your organizations, how does this panel translate percentages into sitting down in front of a map and really carving out what goes where? Because it's not a matter of a few thousand people, it's 150,000 settlers in settlements in the West Bank and Gaza, and how can we possibly sort of negotiate and find common ground when we certainly have it in the outset, but when it comes to specifics, it's a jigsaw puzzle far more than a straight line.
I'd like to try and answer that question.
Microphone, please.
The figures that you heard today for the domestic views in Israel and Palestine aren't any more seriously difficult than the figures we had to deal with and Mitchell had to deal with in Northern Ireland. The highest number we got there was 70% unacceptable for reforming the Royal Ulster Constabulary from the Protestant community. But as part of a peace deal, as everyone has been pointing out, that you can get past that and still